Why is innovation so difficult? How can you come up with great ideas? And how do you test that those ideas are viable and feasible? How do you turn those ideas into actual products that customers are willing to pay for? And what if you're not technical and don't know how to develop the technology? In this video, I will help you answer these questions. I will introduce you to a simple 5-step process that I've used for years to deliver projects worth hundreds of millions of dollars for global clients such as investment banks, universities, government departments, startups, and multinationals. Hi, I am Andrew Mugoya. I am an innovation consultant. I've worked with global brands such as Pepsi, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, UK government departments, and the African Union. I have also worked with founders and startups. I've delivered projects worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Currently, I'm the founder of Strawpath, an innovation lab and consultancy. At Strawpath, we work with founders, startups, and innovation departments, helping them turn innovative ideas into great solutions and products. Based on my years of experience in innovation, solution design, and product development, I have developed a simple 5-stage process that I use to find great ideas, validate them, and turn them into market-ready products. We do this at Strawpath to develop our own in-house products, and we use this approach with our clients. We call this the Strawpath Approach. You too can follow this simple process as a guide on your innovation journey. Let's jump into it. What are the 5 stages? Stage 1, finding opportunities. Many people view innovation or product development as finding problems to solve. I view this as finding opportunities. Every problem is an opportunity to develop an innovative solution. So in this stage, what you're really doing is looking around you and seeing what areas have problems, what areas, what are customers complaining about, or what are clients complaining about? What are the things that you could do that would turn those problems into solutions that they can actually pay for? The second stage is product ideas. How do you turn these opportunities into actual product ideas? Processes or products or prototypes that you can actually develop into a solution. Not all problems or solutions can actually turn into products. So at this stage, you're trying to filter out the problems and opportunities that you found into the ones that you can actually turn into innovative products. Stage 3, I call this the minimum viable process, prototype, or product. This is just a fancy way of saying what's the bare minimum you could do to start to validate your idea. It might be a manual process. So before you develop the product, you solve the problem for clients or customers through a manual process. And then once you've validated it, you can then turn that into an automated product or solution. Or it might be that you need to develop a prototype, a bare minimum prototype, before your customers or clients can validate that this is something they'd be willing to buy. And again, you're not developing something that's very robust. It's a simple prototype to just demonstrate what your solution could do for customers to see and validate. Stage 4 is where you start to build traction, where you take your minimum product or prototype, start to get customers to commit that this is something that they'd be willing to use and pay for. The idea here is that before you fully built out your product, you're getting customers to give you ideas about what's valuable to them, what features they need. So you're not developing features absent of opinions from your customers and your clients. So you're starting to build traction as you build your product. And that helps you shape the product into something that is actually viable and feasible. And then finally, stage 5 is scaling. In stage 5, what we're doing here is thinking about how do you then turn this prototype that you've got traction with into a full-fledged product that's robust, well-built. This is where you now start thinking about building a full team, potentially even hiring other support departments such as HR, legal. You might be thinking about registering the company at this stage if you haven't done so already. But at the scaling stage, it's a fully validated idea. You now want to build it out into a full-fledged product with a full team. Now, we'll jump into each of these stages in more detail next. So stage 1 is identifying opportunities. This is finding problems around you that present an opportunity for innovative solutions. How do you find these problems? There's multiple ways you can do that. The easiest is to just look around and find areas where people, customers, or clients are complaining. You could carry out market research. Um, you could carry out brainstorming activities if you're in a team or within an organization. You could start to list problems that you see around you that within your organization or with partners you've worked with or clients that look like they are areas for innovation and product development. You're starting to list problems and challenges that need solutions. You're shortlisting these problems to those that you can fix. If you're doing this within a team, the target audience is internal. You're doing this within your team, or if you're a founder in a startup, you're doing this yourself. You're starting to look around and maybe speak to people that you work with. Eliminate problems that you're not able to fix. They might be viable and feasible for someone else. So you're trying to identify the range of solutions that are within your capability to solve. So that is stage one. Stage two is product ideas. In this stage, what you're doing is taking the opportunities that you got from stage one and figuring out which of these can be turned into products. Have some sort of objective criteria, an objective process into shortlisting and filtering viable product ideas. You might come up with a rating mechanism or rating system to decide which ideas float to the top, which ones you can prioritize. You might get ideas from external partners, consultants, customers, clients, but internally it's your rating and prioritization mechanism that's kicking in, that's telling you out of all the possible opportunities, these are the ones we should be working on. Similar to stage one, you want to eliminate solutions that are not within your capability to implement. It could be that you have limited resources or limited subject matter knowledge of the industry. So you're trying to focus on the opportunities that you're able to solve, you understand well. You're not taking too much of a risk because you don't understand the industry or you just don't have the resources to cover. Avoid falling in love with specific ideas, because getting emotional about an idea means you lose your objectivity. Trying to be as objective as possible, but at the same time, be ambitious with what you're trying to solve. Think outside the box. Think about ways that are completely different from how things are done, because easy to solve problems will often have many competitors. How different from existing processes and products is your new solution or product? If it's innovative, it will stand out, it will be remarkable. Chances are you get more traction out of that. So that is stage two. Stage three is what I call the minimum viable process, prototype, or product. MVPPP. It's a play on the famous startup phrase of minimum viable product. But what does it mean? What's the minimum you can do to validate your idea? You can come up with a simple process. You might need to develop a simple prototype, or you might need to develop a simple product. So you're looking at the minimum amount of effort before you can validate your idea with customers. Now, that minimum effort still needs to be a solution that they can use to tell you whether or not it's a valid solution. So it still needs to be viable, and hence the word viable in that name. Some level of product development, some maybe a prototype demo, some basic branding. You're trying to do maybe some explainer videos or some product demos. It could be a presentation that you just put together with some product mock-ups or images of designs of how your product might look like. Anything that you can do, the minimum amount that you can do that will get a customer to go, that looks like a product I'd use and I understand how I'd use it. In this case, you're actually speaking back to the customers. You're going back to them and saying, this is something we've developed. What do you think about it? So user focus groups, industry experts, consultants, sample clients, sample customers. Only build what you need to build to confirm that the solution will work. And that's the reason why it's called minimum. You don't want to go too far with too many features, too much functionality before you've validated that you're going in the right direction. When building early prototypes, focus on the core problems that you're trying to solve. It's very tempting to get carried away with with features that are not essentially core to what you're trying to solve. So that is stage 3. Stage 4 in the Strawpath approach is building traction. What does this mean? This is where you now start to get actual customers, start to build out a pipeline of customers. Remember, stage 3, you've developed your minimum viable process, prototype, or product. You've worked with customers as you build out more features, taking your minimum product into something that's a bit more flashy. And now you're starting to get customers to use it. You've more or less validated the product at stage 2. You've built out more features. It's at the stage where you can start getting more customers. It might not be as robust as it needs to be for tens of thousands or millions of users, but it's at a stage where several hundred or several thousand users might use it, depending on the product or the service. And more importantly, you're starting to validate that this can scale. This is a solution that many more customers and clients would be willing to pay for. Recognize that your initial customers are likely to need a high level of handholding. So the service element of your product might still be very high at this stage. They're still trying to learn your product. You're still trying to learn how your product lands and trying to refine your messaging, refine some of the features. So there's still a lot of handholding happening at this stage. Hence the reason why mass marketing is still not necessarily something you want to be doing at this stage. You're starting to build out a small team to help you in that process. You're testing and refining your pricing strategy. You're trying to see whether or not your price points are too low or too high. What are your customers willing to pay? What price points are scalable? And how do you differentiate the different price points for the different types of users and the different packages? You're also starting to track and measure user engagement on your product. So you're building out your analytics to see what features are popular, where customers are struggling on using your product, and you're starting to have some sort of objective way of prioritizing which features to build out and what functionality to build out. So at this stage, you're starting to build out traction. You're developing your product a lot more, but you're also developing the messaging around it and your product positioning, and your team is slowly starting to take shape at this stage. Stage 5 is the final stage of the Strawpath approach. And you're at the stage where you feel this is now a product I'm willing to scale. It's validated. You're clear on the direction of travel. You're clear on your pricing, and you're now ready to build out a full team and a full company. And at this stage, the key activities are business operations, customer service, sales, marketing. So you're trying to now reach out to a lot more customers beyond your initial adopters. At this stage, you're starting to revisit how you've built your original product. Remember, you might have started off with a prototype. It's worked with a few hundreds of users. It's helped you get a bit of traction, but it might not have been built in such a way that it's robust enough. Do you need to bring in a bigger team? Do you need to use different technology? It's a challenge, yes, but it's a good challenge to have because you know you're rebuilding a product that's already been validated. You have a clear roadmap as to the big features that you'll be adding based on what customers have told you, the metrics you've been measuring from the previous stages. You're also building the right team around the product necessary to support a product that is going to scale to hundreds of thousands, millions, hundreds of millions, and potentially billions of users. So those are the 5 stages of the Strawpath approach. Just to summarize again, stage 1, you're identifying opportunities. Stage 2, you're looking to determine which ones you can turn into product ideas. Stage 3, you're looking to build out your minimum viable process, prototype, or product. Stage 4, you're starting to build traction. Stage 5, I'm now ready to scale. So the key idea around these 5 stages is to help you identify what activities you should be doing when, what to avoid. It helps you identify what activities you should be focusing on at every stage of your innovation journey. 5 different stages. I know what activities I need to be focusing on. And hopefully that's what the Strawpath approach is giving you. If you liked this video, like, comment, subscribe. We've got more videos coming up. I'd like to hear about products you're working on, any solutions you're developing. I'd like to help where I can. Take care.